So I'm about 180 hours deep into Dragon's Dogma 2. I've completed the game multiple times, done all the quests, and seen everything this game has to offer. Today, I'll be sharing with you the things I learned that I wish someone had told me 180 hours earlier. Everything from combat to exploration, upgrades, and even obscure mechanics that the game doesn't tell you. I'll also be sharing content that you might have missed towards the end of the video, so make sure you stick around till then. We'll start with beginner tips first and go into the more advanced ones as the video goes on, so without further ado, here's tip number 1. Make your pawns unique. One of the best features that Dragon's Dogma 2 offers is the fact that you can hire the followers of other players. Sometimes if a player really likes your pawns, they give you gifts which can be very useful, like how some people receive free port crystals, gold beetles, or just a green warish. You can either make your pawn look really good or really ugly, but please make them look unique. A guaranteed way for your pawn to never get hired is to make them look mid and forget to give them a name. So make them eye-catching. Number 2. Character sizes affect gameplay. Similar to the first game, your character's height and weight actually affects your stamina, stamina regeneration, and carry weight limit. Larger characters have higher stamina and carry limit, but their stamina depletes fast and regenerates slower. The opposite is true for slim or smaller characters. Number 3. Some quests are timed. Make sure you pay attention to the dialogue when accepting quests because various quests in this game will progress without your influence. If you get a quest that you feel has a timed mechanic, prioritize it or you might lose out on rewards, stories, and even entire quest areas. Number 4. Enemies have specific weak points. If you feel like you're dealing little to no damage, especially to larger enemies, try to attack different parts of their bodies. Usually it will be the head, but other weak points also become available depending on your enemy. Number 5. Some enemies are weak to specific elements or types of attacks. Lightning for Cyclops and fire for Griffins are just a few examples. There's also slash or strike damage depending on what weapon you're using, so make sure to experiment. Number 6. Golden Trove Beetles are your best friend. I saw a lot of players just not reading item descriptions and realizing too late that this item permanently increases you and your pawn's carry weight limit when consumed. Also, don't give these away, they don't respawn. Number 7. Don't ignore seeker tokens. Items which can be found in various corners of the world. Just collect them whenever you see them because they give you rewards when submitted to the Vocation Guild. Also, don't forget to put a map marker whenever you find your first one. This is going to be very useful later on in the game. Number 8. The easiest way to collect both of these collectibles is by forwarding the time to nighttime, either by camping, sleeping at the inn, or resting at a bench. You can then adventure in the dark where they can easily be spotted as they both emit a bright glow. Speaking of nighttime, number 9. Avoid traveling at night during the early game. More enemies will spawn and you'll end up fighting things like skeletons and phantoms. Only travel at night when you're comfortable handling them or you might end up in real danger. But if nighttime catches up to you or you notice the sky getting dark, immediately find a camping spot and rest till morning. Number 10. Camping kits are reusable. A very common mistake that people make is thinking that you have to bring multiple camping kits with you. They're reusable and heavy, so you only need to bring one. The one exception is if you didn't clear the area before you camp. You might get raided while sleeping and your camping kit has a chance of breaking. So tip number 11 is to clear the area of any enemies before you make camp. Number 12. Aged meat for stronger buffs. Whenever you're camping, you get access to cooking, which allows you to cook the scrags of beef, steaks, or dried meat that you pick up. In Dragon's Dogma 2, the longer food stays in your inventory, the more buffs they give. And they also changed their name. Aged meat is the best one, just be careful to not let it sit in your inventory too long or else they might rot. And lastly for camping, number 13. The best camping gear you can get pretty early on is the Elite Camping Kit. You can buy it from stores, but a free way to get this is by going to the checkpoint rest town and completing the quest given to you by a Fulv. Number 14. If you are planning to travel at night, make sure you buy a lantern and bring plenty of lantern oils. This is gonna give you that much needed vision, and you should get one for your pawns too for more visibility. It grinds my gears how many people I saw just traveling in the dark without a lantern and complaining that they can't see anything. You can also activate it pretty easily by using the item shortcut. Hold L1 or LB on your controller, then press the right D-pad. Number 15. Pay attention to these statues. Your pawn will almost always let you know whenever you're near one of these. They usually have a letter at the bottom giving you hints, and if you go to the direction that the statue is pointing, there's usually a point of interest. Number 16. Get your house early. Upon arriving in the capital, find Mildred and she'll give you a quest to basically house sit while she's gone for a week. After the week is over, you can buy the house for 20,000 gold, and this will remove the need for you to pay for in-rests, which are expensive in the early parts of the game. Number 17. Collect every material you come across. You might think you don't need these basic ores or goblin horns, but there will come a time where you'd need some very quick cash. Selling these low-level materials once you have too much of them later on in the game is a very easy way to come up with a few 100,000 golds, and will also allow you to easily buy Mildred's house early on in the game. Anyway, now that we're in Vernworth, this is a great time to talk about riftstones and pawns. Number 18. Riftstones allow you to hire pawns, but grand riftstones in the main cities allow you to use advanced search. Use these to look for pawns with specific skills, levels, vocations, and even whether they're masculine, feminine, human, or beastren. You can also find pawns here that can guide you to the completion of your quest. The riftstones you find outside in the wild don't have this feature, and you're left at the mercy of whatever type of riftstone you find, so whenever you're in the city, make sure to take advantage of the advanced search. Number 19. Don't waste your rift crystals. These are currency that can be acquired from unlocking riftstones in the open world or whenever your pawn gets hired. You can use them to hire pawns that are higher level than you, but the best way to use them is for the shop near the Grand Riftstone in Vernworth. He sells a bunch of stuff like cosmetics and personality changes for your pawns, but the most important thing is the Art of Metamorphosis item, which allows you to change you and your pawn's looks. Number 20. Pay attention to riftstone types. There are different types of riftstones that can be found in the wilds which summon pawns with specific attributes or personality types. For example, I found this riftstone for large and tall women specifically, a riftstone for pawns you've previously hired, and a riftstone for beastren only pawns. Other ones that stick out in my memory are riftstones for slim pawns, riftstones for pawns with large chests, and riftstones for pawns with special titles. My most favorite one, however, is the Riftstone of Duty, which allows you to make easy money, and I'm gonna show you how. Number 21. Here's how to get easy money. The Riftstone of Duty will only show you pawns with quests and rewards. There's a push in the community for pawn quests to give out 10k gold rewards by doing easy tasks such as killing Cyclops or camping a certain amount of times. If you're in need of cash, go to a Riftstone of Duty. Find a pawn with a 10k gold reward, bring 2 of them, and you can make 20k cash pretty quickly. Rinse and repeat until you have enough money for whatever you need. The closest Riftstone of Duty to Vernworth is located just north of the city near this watchtower and campsite. So that's pretty much it with Riftstones. Now let's move on to your pawns with tip number 22. Don't neglect your pawn's gear. This is not only for getting your pawns hired, but they're a significant part of your overall combat power. If you neglect their gear, they might die all the time or deal little to no damage. Number 23. Maintain a balanced party. Some enemies will directly counter your vocation. If I'm playing a physical damage class, I will personally bring a sorcerer with me so they can deal with any enemies that are immune to physical attacks, and I will make sure that their gear, especially their weapon, is as strong as possible. Some vocations like warrior and fighter pawns can also allow you access to previously inaccessible places by launching you with their skills. So play around with different party compositions, but just make sure you have an answer to most situations. Number 24. Swap pawns regularly. Only your main pawn's level keeps up with yours. The other 2 pawns don't level up any higher than when you hired them, so make sure to swap every couple of levels. Number 25. If you do end up having favorite pawns that are now underleveled, use the favorite feature and they might come back a little later in your world with a higher level and updated gear if their orisons rest at an inn. Sometimes you'll see them walking around since you favorited them, or you can sort in the Grand Riftstone every once in a while to see if they got updated. Number 26. Pawns will direct you to points of interest. How this works is that whenever your pawns gets hired, whatever they learn in that Arisen's world will be brought back to yours. They will lead you to chests, statues, secret tokens, ladders, and hidden areas. Number 27. Use your D-pad to order your pawns. For example, if a pawn tells you they found something, use the up button to order them to go and lead you to whatever they found. Press the left D-pad to ask for help, heals, or to order them to fight beside you. Right to ask them to wait in specific locations, and down to call them to yours. If they're in and out of reach area and they're stuck, you can also use down on your D-pad to teleport them directly to you. We're almost done with the beginner tips, so I'm just gonna rapid fire a few ones that I'd like you to always remember. Number 28. Don't waste your fairy stones. They're quite rare in the early game, and while they are convenient for teleporting you to port crystals, they're also very expensive. Instead, use tip number 29. Utilize the ox carts. There are ox carts going from Melve to Vernworth to the checkpoint rest town directly to Back Batal. If you're going to any of these major areas, it's best to save your fairy stones because trips only cost 200 gold. Number 30. If the ox cart is unavailable, you can wait for the exact time you can ride them by pressing B on this sign. It'll fast forward to the time when you can board the ox cart. Once you're in, you can just doze off and you'll be in your destination. Just protect the ox cart whenever enemy attacks happen and don't let them destroy it or you'd have to walk the rest of the way. Number 31. Utilize the combining feature. A lot of players forget this mechanic even exists in the game, but if you combine specific items, you can easily acquire good quality heals and stamina regens like Roborants and the like. Number 32. Save your high-end curatives. Low-end curatives are pretty easy to find and craft in this game. If you get anything like all heal elixirs, don't use it in the early game as any enemy you will fight right now will not really pose much of a threat. Number 33. There's a port crystal in Harv Village. I completely missed this for my first 30 hours in the game and dreaded the long walk from Vernworth to Harv. Just unlock this and you'll be able to teleport here anytime. This is also one of the only 2 stationary port crystals in the whole game, with the other one being in Vernworth. Lastly, for the beginner section, number 34, take it slow. Dragon's Dogma 2 is a game filled with many secrets and interesting things to find. If you do nothing but the main story and you never bother to go off the beaten path, then you'll most likely find your experience to be lackluster. There's a lot of people complaining that the game is too short or ends abruptly, and then later you find out that they rush through the main quest, not even experiencing a quarter of what this game has to offer. Take your time, explore the world, do the NPC quests, and you'll have a better time in this game. My first playthrough took me 90 hours and I still missed a lot of things. You can complete Dragon's Dogma 2 within 20 hours if you wanted, but did you really experience the game? Now, let's move on to the tips and tricks for the mid-game. Number 35. Beware of the point of no return in the Vermund questline. There's a lot of easily missable quests in the earlier areas that will be locked to you after Feast of Deception and the Coronation, so take the time to go back and explore previous areas before you finish up and head for Batal. Number 36. You can make forgeries of any item in the checkpoint rest town. Talk to the shopkeeper named Ibrahim in this corner of the town, give him whatever you need a copy of and wait 24 hours. This is very useful for making copies of items that are hard to get, extremely limited, or exclusive to quests. A great example of its use is the unbreaking jail key that Captain Brent lends you in the Magistrate quest. Make a forgery, return the original key to Captain Brent, and now you'll never have a need for makeshift jail keys ever again. Just make sure to remember that forgeries will not be able to replicate the magical effects of items. You'll typically know a forgery doesn't work if the name changed to something bootleggy. Number 37. You can get to Batal without a permit if you utilize the ox cart. This is a pretty fun way to get to Batal early without getting stopped by the border guard. Keep an eye out for the specific ox cart, ride it, and it'll take you past the gate, giving you free entry to the Beastren Nation. The guards will attack you though if you exit too early, so if you don't want to get attacked by the guards, you can take this path south instead to Guerco Cavern, which will spit you out just north of Back Batal. Number 38. Get a free port crystal in the forested Griffin's Nest. This can easily be done by riding griffins right before they escape, and they'll take you directly to their nest where there's a bunch of loot and a free portable port crystal. However, if you miss your chance, you can instead go to the Misty Marshes and hug the left wall. Eventually, you'll get to this open area where a little climbing will bring you to its nest. Just be careful of any falling griffin from above that might attack you. Number 39. Use your Harpy Snare smoke beacons. You might think this item is pretty useless. No, this is not for fighting harpies. This is actually used to attract one friendly harpy, which you can then grab onto to take you to out of reach places. This specific harpy will not attack and will not be attacked by your pawn, so this is perfect for any vocation that doesn't have upward mobility like the warrior. Number 40. Pawns can catch you. If you run out of stamina while on a harpy, just line up with wherever your pawn is and they'll catch you, preventing you from taking fall damage. This can be done anywhere, whether you're falling off of a giant monster or just jumping off of a cliff. Aside from catching you, pawns can also be thrown to open out of reach chests, drop down ladders, and open barred doors. Number 41. Pawn surf to safely get down great heights. If you tackle a pawn at just the right angle and fall down, you take no fall damage. Now, since we're on the topic of pawns once again, let's talk about tip number 42. Beware of Dragon's Plague. This is a sickness that can be acquired by any pawn when fighting dragons or drakes. They can also be spread from pawn to pawn whenever you're hiring new pawns in the Rift. Telltale signs of Dragon's Plague are pawns acting weird and not following commands. They can also be rude to you whenever you give them orders. And lastly, their eyes will grow a bright red if the Dragon's Plague stays with them for long enough. If you do get pawns with Dragon's Plague and don't dismiss them, bad things can happen, but I'll let you find that out for yourself. Number 43. Here's how to get rid of Dragon's Plague. For hired pawns, it's pretty easy. Just dismiss them and things will be okay. But what if it's your main pawn that gets afflicted? That simply means that you need to take them for a wash and throw your main pawn into the brine. Once you get access to Riftstone, they will come back cleared of any traces of the sickness. Number 44. Learn about pawn specializations. This is a new feature introduced in Dragon's Dogma 2 which gives your pawn specific behaviors. There's Chirurgeon, which allows your pawn to automatically heal your party with curatives, Logistician, which lets them combine items and put them into your inventory, Forager for marking locations of materials, Hawker for pawns to offer you to buy your items, and then there's Woodland Wordsmith, which teaches your pawn Elvish and allow you to communicate with speakers of the language. The last one is Aphanite, which stops your pawn from speaking all the time. Number 45. Augments are not limited to one vocation. Augments are the passive skills that you unlock as you rank up your vocation. The great thing about them is that every single augment can be used on any class, so don't just use one vocation the whole game. Try to see which vocation's augments works best for your preferred playstyle and try to add them into your arsenal. Number 46. There's a search function for upgrade materials by pressing Y or triangle on your map. You would need a pawn with the Forager specialization who will mark the materials for you, but once those materials are marked, use the search function on the map, and if you have any non-fully upgraded weapon in your inventory, you can see in this window the exact materials you need for upgrades as well as their locations. Great for farming materials, but also for finding elite enemies. Number 47. Different smiths have different upgrades. Vermin smithing is balanced, Batal smithing is great for strength and physical defense stat, Elven smithing for magic and magic defense, and then lastly there's Dwarven smithing, which increases your knockdown effectiveness for weapons or resist knockback for your armor. Pick whichever one is suited for your vocation and weapon type. Speaking of knockdowns, number 48. You can push or pull when a large monster is unbalanced to force them to fall down. Hold the grab button when you're on the ground and move forward or backward with your analog stick while holding on to their leg. Number 49. Impale your enemies by pressing Y or triangle when they fall. This will give you a finisher animation and deal massive critical damage. Number 50. If you're fighting a golem and you notice them briefly turn back into stone, push them. They will crumble, giving you easy access to the metals. Number 51. Cyclops can be turned into a bridge if you make them fall into appropriate sized gaps. You can also acquire an achievement by crossing said bridge. Number 52. You can heal even at 0 health if you time it right. The moment you notice your health go down, if you time it right, you can either heal through the menu or through the item shortcut, and you'll live despite reaching 0 health. Number 53. Pay attention to your environment when in combat. The devs have designed areas with the intention of letting you use the environment to defeat certain enemies. Ballistas, dams, large stones, gaps, and cliffs can trivialize an encounter. Number 54. Hoard Worm Life Crystals. Mid-game is when you'll most likely be able to defeat drakes and lesser dragons, and these guys drop Worm Life Crystals from their blood if you attack their heart. Hoard them religiously as these materials will be very useful later on in the game. Number 55. Don't feel bad about running away. Enemies don't scale in this game, so if you decide to just get a little bit stronger before tackling that drake, it's okay. Level up, upgrade your gear, and come back after getting stronger. Number 56. Do not trade your Fulminous Shield for Howling Blizzard. This is a mistake I made in my first playthrough. You only get one Fulminous Shield in the whole game and it can be bought in Melve. However, there are 3 NPCs that are going to want your Fulminous Shield and one of them asked to trade it for a Howling Blizzard. Don't do it, instead let's go to tip number 57. Go back to the area where Rook drowned and where the first Griffin died. The Griffin and the rubble will have been cleared out by the guards, giving you access to a very large cave. This is also where you can find copies of Nation's Death Knell and Howling Blizzard for the Trisha and Mirrodin quest. Just beware that this place has a lot of very strong bosses. Speaking of Mirrodin, number 58. Some quests needs you to be wearing specific clothing to be triggered. The most common one most people miss is Mirrodin, who can be found in the checkpoint rest town. If you haven't been able to speak to Mirrodin, wear the courtly tunic and breeches and he will allow you entry into his home. Number 59. You can submit forgeries for most quests. The best example aside from the J.org quest is Mirrodin's quest. The problem with it is that Trisha, the young sorcerer north of Melve, also needs the exact same items, and there's a limited number of these grimoires in each playthrough. She needs the grimoires to learn magic, but Mirrodin only needs it to complete a collection. If you create forgeries of the grimoires, give Mirrodin the fakes and Trisha the real ones so you can complete both quests without needing to choose one over the other. Number 60. You can use wake stones to revive dead NPCs. Usually when NPCs die, it doesn't really affect the game, but what do you do when a quest NPC dies on you? Get close to them, and if you have a wake stone, you'll get the option to revive them. But wait, what happens if you lose their bodies? Number 61. Visit the morgue. If you lose crucial NPCs for quests, you can go to the morgue in either Vermont or Batal where you can pay some money to find their bodies. Once you do, you can use the wake stones as usual, and after resting at your house or an inn, they will be back to their respective places. Number 62. Unlock the Vernworth Castle Vault. In the basement of the castle, there's a locked room with a guard that will not let you get close to the door, it just teleports you back up the stairs. In order to unlock this room, first you'll need a key, so go to the ancient battlegrounds and the key can be found in the main keep. Go back to the castle, get a barrel from the kitchen, and throw it at the guard. Once she starts running, grab her, take her to the kitchen, throw her to the wall, and then run back to the door and unlock it with your key. Inside, you'll find 20,000 gold and a bunch of cool items that you'll just have to see for yourself. Number 63. There's large houses available in both the major cities. Vernworths can be accessed by talking to this dude in the Noble District, and Back Batals can be accessed when going to the palace. They're quite expensive though, so make sure you have a lot of extra money. Number 64. The pause menu actually serves as a clock. I didn't notice this until someone pointed it out, but if you need to know the exact time, just look at the pause menu. Number 65. Beware of the point of no return in Act 2. The point of no return in Act 2 is basically when you enter Moonglint Tower. But the event that will set the story in motion actually comes a lot earlier when you complete the Godsway related quest. I recommend doing everything you need to do before completing this quest, as the pacing of the story will rush you towards the end of the game. Lastly, for the mid-game, number 66. There's an alternate path south of Back Batal to access the Agamemnon volcanic island early. Go to this part of the map, follow the path south, and you'll find Drabnir's Grotto. It's a pretty long dungeon, but it'll spit you out somewhere close to the volcanic island camp. Now, let's move on to tips for the late game, and I'll also include things that you shouldn't miss before going for the ending. Number 67. The Gigantus fight is skippable. Upon completion of the new Godsway quest, the Gigantus will rise up from the sea. While this fight is cool and all, the second time around it just kinda feels like a waste of time. Sleep at the inn or just quest wherever you prefer while all the commotion is happening, and the Gigantus will still be defeated without your help. Number 68. If you want to defeat Gigantus in the fastest way possible, you can shoot an unmaking arrow anywhere on its body and it will destroy every crystal that needs to be attacked. Let it follow its predetermined path, and once it gets to these cliffs here, the Gigantus will stop and you'll get an achievement. If you don't know where to get an unmaking arrow, visit the Dragon Forge north of Back Batal near the coastline and he'll give you one for 8 Worm Life crystals. Number 69. Dragon Forge your equipment. Dragon Forging or Wormfire upgrading is pretty much the last upgrade you can make. Once you've upgraded your equipment 3 times, go here for the last one, and in exchange for Worm Life crystals, which you've hopefully hoarded up until this point of the game, he will allow you to not only increase your damage but will also lower the weight of your equipment. It also gives your stuff a unique pattern, which is pretty cool. This is also a great time to unlock all the vocations you haven't yet unlocked, so for tip number 70, here's the location of all unlockable vocations. Warrior and Sorcerer can be unlocked very early by finding the Great Sword and Archistaff in Trevo Mine. Mystic Spearhand can be unlocked by speaking to Sigurd, who can be found in Melve after the Monster Culling quest, or in Har Village later on. If you missed him in both of these areas, you can also find him in Dragon Breath Tower southwest of the map. Trickster can easily be unlocked by speaking to Luz just south of the checkpoint rest town, and Magic Archer can be unlocked by following the quest line Put a Spring in Thy Step, which can be triggered the first time you reach Agamemnon Volcanic Island through the Southern Passage. Just help Gustafer follow the quest line and Cleona will unlock the Magic Archer vocation for you once it's completed. The last one, Warfarer, is the hardest one to unlock. Following Cleona's questline will bring you to the hot spring where Lamond is resting. You're going to give him 3 Newt Liquors and he'll grant you the Warfarer vocation. As for where these newt liquors are, one is sold by Ireland in Batal, another can be found in the Forbidden Magic Lab in one of the rooms near the Dead Dragon, and the last one is in Cleona's home, which you'll pass through on her quest. Number 71. If you do somehow lose or can't find one of the newt liquors, that's fine. There's a hidden newt liquor shop in Batal which can be accessed by moving this haystack into the pen near Higgs Tavern stand. Doing this will let you buy newt liquor for 5,000 gold a bottle. Just make sure you wear a beastren mask when you do this or else the guards will attack you. Number 72. Don't miss the Sphinx. One of the coolest monsters in Dragon's Dogma is pretty hard to come across. The way to find her is by going to the top of the fortress in the ancient battlegrounds and following this cave system in the back. Eventually, you'll find your way into the mountain shrine where the Sphinx will be waiting for you. Number 73. Get an extra port crystal from the Sphinx. When you're answering the riddle of conviction, the Sphinx will ask for your most prized possession. Anything you give her is the right answer, but when you open the unlocked chest from the riddle, you'll see that you just got a duplicate of whatever item you gave. Give her a port crystal as your most prized possession and she'll give you another one upon unlocking the chest. Number 74. Grab onto the Sphinx before she leaves. After completing the riddles in the mountain shrine, the Sphinx will move on to her next lair. It's pretty hard to find on foot, so I recommend taking the shortcut. Once you answer the final riddle, the Sphinx will unlock the last small chest and quickly prepare to fly. Don't grab the chest, instead hold onto the Sphinx as she flies up and climb to the top of her neck. Since the flight is fairly long, this will allow you to release your hold and recover stamina, but pay attention to whenever she dives or rises up because you'll need to grab hold of her again or else you'll fall down. Eventually, she will land in the next shrine and you can start her new riddles immediately. Number 75. Prepare an unmaking arrow when solving the Sphinx's last riddle. Upon completion of all the riddles, the Sphinx will fight you and may leave mid-battle never to be seen again without opening her bigger chest. Be an archer or a warfarer and prepare your unmaking arrow while she tries to leave and shoot at her body. This will one-shot her and give you access to her final reward, an Eternal Wakestone. Number 76. Save your Eternal Wakestone for a Dragon's Plague disaster. We learned about Dragon's Plague earlier in the video, but what happens when you forget to cleanse your pawns? Upon sleeping at an inn, everybody in whichever city you're in will die, including quest NPCs. The Eternal Wakestone will come in handy as it will revive all NPCs that died and you'll get the Reaper's Scorn achievement. Number 77. Make a forgery of the Eternal Wakestone. Since it's a single-use item that can only be acquired once per playthrough, it's a pretty rare item. Usually magic items do not work when it's a forgery, but the Eternal Wakestone is an exception. Make a forgery of it so you always have an Eternal Wakestone handy whenever you need it. Now, let's talk about a few more things that I personally missed before moving on to the end game. Number 78. If you don't want to miss Ulrika's romance quest like I did, make sure to revisit Melv when Captain Brand tells you to check in on the village after the monster culling quest. If you complete Feast of Deception and Coronation before revisiting Melv, you will be locked out of this questline for the rest of the playthrough. Number 79. If you don't want to miss Wilhelmina's romance quest, frequently visit the Rose Chateau Bordelry after you first meet her. As long as you haven't entered Moonglin Tower, her questline should be available and it can be accessed whenever you see this guy guarding her door. Take a peek in this peephole and the questline will start. Number 80. Speak to the elf in front of the Vernworth weapon shop so you don't miss out on the whole Sacred Arbor questline. I wouldn't have known this if a commenter didn't mention it in my last video, so thank you. Oh, and since you're in the Sacred Arbor anyway, number 81. Connect Melv to Sacred Arbor. So this is a shortcut that took me a while to figure out, but whenever you're doing the elf's quest from earlier, you'll end up visiting this dungeon called the Ancestral Chamber. Upon completion, rest a few days and come back to the dungeon where you should find new enemies like the Garm. Kill everything, go to the back, and find this barred door. Skeletons and a Fell Lord will spawn, so let the skeletons attack the wood bearing the door and that'll give you access to the Hermit's hideout and the path taking you directly to Melv. If the skeletons don't spawn, save right in front of the gate, quit to the menu screen, and load back in. Sometimes it takes a couple of retries for them to spawn, but eventually they will and they'll try to attack you. Number 82. You can decapitate the Medusa's head. The best way to do this is by using the Thief Vocation and using the daggers to slice at her head. Depending on how much health she has when you cut it off determines how preserved the Medusa's head will be. Number 83. Raise your main pawn's affinity before tackling the ending. There's an additional hidden cutscene that will be unlocked in the ending if your pawn has a high enough affinity. Actions that increase affinity are small talks, high fives, going to the hot springs, and giving them a makeover through the Barbary, which has the biggest effect. All of these have a cooldown of around 10 minutes or so. Actions that reduce affinity are whenever a pawn gets forfeited. So treat your pawns right, and eventually they'll be blushing when around you and you'll know they've entered the love state. Number 84. Hot Springs cure pawn scars. You might not notice this immediately, but pawns actually do accumulate scars from battles that they've done across the rift. The hot springs will cure it and also give you a small boost to affinity. Number 85. Your highest affinity NPCs can be gathered in the hot springs. If you care about whoever your beloved is by the end of the game, go to the hot springs and pay attention to who is in there. The ones with max affinity will be bathing, but if you don't have your desired beloved in the hot spring, move on to tip number 86. The easiest way to increase affinity with NPCs that you like is by giving them gifts that they like. This information can be found in the journal, or you can also give them a bunch of flowers. The best way to increase their affinity, however, is by completing their respective quest. Maxing out affinity with various characters also gives you a reward. For example, tip number 87, you need max affinity to acquire the legendary skills for vocations. For sorcerers and mages, you would have to do the Trisha and Mirrodin questline, which we discussed earlier. Trisha and Mirrodin will give you the spells Meteoron and Maelstrom respectively for the sorcerer vocation, and Trisha's grandmother Amy will give you Celestial Peon for the mage vocation when you complete her questline. The warrior's Arc of Might can be acquired from Baron northwest of Melve after completing his questline, and the fighter's Righteous Fury will be given to you by Lenart and Melve if you didn't miss the event there. Sigurd will give you Wild Fury after you help him in Dragon's Breath Tower, and the Archer's legendary skill can be acquired in the Sacred Arbor from the Arborist, upon again the completion of the questline there. The ones from Trickster, Magic Archer, and Warfarer are going to be given to you upon unlocking each vocation. Number 88. The easiest way to gain affinity for a large number of people is by bar hopping and buying rounds for every bar in the major cities. This is very useful for the achievement philanthropist where you'd need the affection of 50 or more people. Number 89. Always bring a staff with you as a warfarer. Even if you don't have skills for a mage or a sorcerer, you'll be able to levitate and get to hard to reach areas. Warfarer also levels the rest of your vocations, albeit slowly, so it's pretty useful to run Warfarer when you're not in need of ultimate skills for that passive vocation level ups. Number 90. Mystic Spearhand's Dragon's Foin to Sky Dragon's Festi combo will land you on top of large monsters if done right, giving you a massive advantage in battle. Number 91. Sorcerers and mages are capable of dual casting. If you and your pawn or multiple pawns cast the same spell, casting time will be significantly reduced, which is perfect for powerful spells like Meteoron and Maelstrom. Number 92. Don't miss out on the Unmoored World. So now we're moving on to the very late stages of the game, so I'll put a spoiler alert here for how to reach the true ending. When you fight the dragon and defeat him, and you're being crowned as a sovereign of Vermund in the good ending, you'll probably feel a sense of that's it. Don't sit on the throne, instead talk to the Pathfinder and he will give you a chance to redo your choices. He will take you back to the time before you fought the dragon, and in that long flight to the battlefield, crawl to the heart of the dragon. When you start hearing loud heartbeats and your chest starts to glow, pull out the God's Bane from your inventory and use it on yourself, and this will take you to the true ending of the game. If you don't want spoilers beyond this point, this is the time for you to click away. Number 93. Don't sleep in the Unmoored World. Sleeping at the inn or your house, resting at camps, or passing time in benches will make the brine fog move and wreak havoc. Instead, do tip number 94 first. Tackle the large beams before anything else. The thing with post-game is that these beams call upon large brine monsters to annihilate cities and towns. By using your fairy stones and tackling these first, you actually prevent the fog from progressing, giving you enough time to not just explore, but also to evacuate everyone. Number 95. You can't stay in the Unmoored World forever. Once you stop the fog from progressing, you can now safely explore the new map and do whatever you need to do. You can sleep, rest at camps, and recover your health. Just make sure to remember that you only get a maximum of about 12 rests before the game won't allow you to pass the time anymore. Number 96. Stock your all heal elixirs through the whole game. This is basically your lifeline if you want to stay in the Unmoored World, as it heals beyond the lost gauge. If you stock these potions throughout your playthrough, you should have a bunch of them, giving you a lot of time to do whatever you need before New Game Plus. Number 97. The best weapons in the whole game can be acquired from the Dragon Forge. The Unmoored World adds new armors and weapons to a lot of the shops in the game. The best ones, the dragon weapons, can be exchanged for Worm Life Crystals with the Dragon Forge. There's also new armors for you to unlock. Make sure you get your best in slot and your pawn's best in slot before moving on with New Game Plus. Number 98. Farm Worm Life Crystals. There are new drakes and lesser dragons to fight here in the post-game, so if you don't have enough Worm Life Crystals to get what you need, take your time and find these dragons. Number 99. Farm Fairy Stones. The one thing I really dislike about Dragon's Dogma 2 is how they didn't give us the Eternal Fairy Stone from the first game. Thankfully, Fairy Stones have a very high drop rate in the Unmoored World, so collect as much as you need before proceeding. Number 100. Don't touch the final beam in the Seafloor Shrine. It's gonna take you to the true ending of the game and will beeline you to New Game Plus. Do everything you need to do. Increase your pawn affinity, Dragon Forge your dragon equipment, get your fairy stones, and check out what changed and what new enemies spawn in previous areas before interacting with the last beam. Tip number 101. Wolves hunt in packs. So if you don't want to deal with wolves dragging you all the way to the other side of the map, drop any piece of meat on the ground and they will be distracted, giving you an easy way to absolutely devastate these annoying mobs. That was a long one. Comment down below if you learned anything new or if you've got something that I wasn't able to include in this video. I'd love to see what other things I've missed. Hit that like and subscribe button if you want to see more, and also thank you to our Patreon supporters for making this channel possible. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!